Well, good morning and welcome. I should say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're watching from. And welcome. I want to welcome all of you for watching. This is my LinkedIn Live series, which gets converted to the podcast later. I like to call it Enthusiastically Self Employed. And I bring on inspiring people to inspire and motivate you. And today I have with me a very special guest, Katie Nall. Hey, Katie, how are you doing today?
Oh, Brenda, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for hosting this and for inviting me. I appreciate you.
Well, I am delighted to have you, and we've chatted a little bit before the show, and we also had a conversation. Gosh, it was probably a couple months back now when we were first planning the conversation for today, and it seems like at the time I remember like August or October 17th, like wow, that's a really far away a ways. But once August hits, it's like August, September, October. The months just start flying by. So here we are today.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
want to say
awesome.
shout out to Doug. I graduated from Gearing High School in Nebraska. So, hey,
Oh,
glad to hear from
awesome.
you. Yeah.
Well, on that note, I want to welcome our audience. So if you're watching this right now, whether you're watching it on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or on Facebook, we'd love it if you could be just like Doug and drop a comment below. That lets us know that the live stream is picking up and that you can hear us loud and clear. And Katie, I always tell people this is kind of like that mic tap. Like if we were in person, I would tap the mic as I got on stage and I would say, "Hello, can you hear me in the back?" If we didn't do the AV check, which sometimes we don't get to do, but at any rate, the comments let us know the live stream is working. So we are delighted that LinkedIn looks like it's picking up, and fingers crossed the other networks will be picking this up as well. And Katie and I are going to be talking today. You can see the topic right above us here. It's called The Importance of Managing Waffles to Make Better Decisions. And I every time I think of this term waffles, I'm thinking of breakfast items, waffles and pancakes and crepes and muffins. And I don't think we're talking about breakfast foods here today, Katie, but before we jump into the topic, you and we know each other from Innovation Women, which is an amazing organization created by Bobby Carlton. I'll give her and Innovation Women a shout out here in a second. And we've been on the Speaker Friends Fridays calls together, and we did a prep call. I think I reached out to you when I was preparing to submit to be a TEDx speaker. I didn't get this one, but I'll try for other ones. But we had a couple of side conversations, and I said, "Hey, why don't you come on my show and we'll have a great conversation?" So I know a little bit about you, Katie, but for those who are just getting to know you, could you take a few minutes, tell us a bit about who you are, who you help, and what it is that you do?
Well, thank you, Brenda. I'm a two-time TEDx speaker. I'm a mathematician. And when I was a late in life student, going back for my PhD to help students overcome their fear and anxiety about math and test taking, I discovered a way to dissolve waffles. And so I help clients and I also speak on how to dissolve waffles to make better decisions.
Well, on that note, let's jump right in on this, and I'm going to continue to load comments as they're coming in for our audience. But I really want to get into our conversation here today because I know that when we're talking about waffles, you have an acronym, and there's periods in between each of the letters in here. So, I guess do we want to start with what is waffles, or tell us a little bit of the backstory? It's up to you, Katie.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a little bit of the background. So, when I found a way to help students overcome their fear and anxiety about math, I started in 2010, and I attended a 10-day summit that was held by Nick Ortner on emotional freedom technique, also called EFT or tapping. And through that process, I was looking for a way to help these students. Well, there was a 10-day summit. It went through the 10 days and it talked about how you could use this for finances, for relationships, for everything. Nobody said anything about math or test taking, but it seemed like a way to help our students with fears and anxiety. So I went back and tried it and it was working. I was so surprised, Brenda, because I didn't know if it was going to work or not. But then I realized I needed to get training. I got some training on it and I realized it could be used for so many things. I wanted to tell people about this amazing, amazing technique. So I would go up to almost complete strangers, grab them by the shoulders and say, I know you've got problems. I can help you. That's not a good marketing technique.
Did that work out? Did you have any people like call the police?
Exactly. So I thought I needed to calm down. So I
Yeah.
I ran over to people and I said, "Hey, I know how to do tapping. I want to help you with your problems." Well, everybody wanted me to dance, and I don't dance.
Tapping, it sounds like tap dancing, right?
Exactly. So I had to think of a way to explain people what I do. And I reflected back. By then, I'd been doing this for a few years. And I thought, I've helped people with worries. I've helped them with anxiety. I've helped them with fear. And by the time I got to worries, anxiety, and fear, I went, ooh, wait a minute. I've also helped them with frustrations, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress. And that's where waffles came from. So now I can talk to people about waffles and they don't run away.
Yeah. So do you want to break down like waffles? What does it mean? What does it stand for? Or what's the
Sure.
best way to approach the story, I guess?
So WAFFLES actually stands for what I help people with, which is worries. The W is for worries.
Okay.
The A is for anxiety.
Mhm.
The first F is for fears. The next one is for frustrations. Then there's lethargy. I've helped people who felt like, they couldn't get up and get going. Um, uh, the worries, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, people who are completely exhausted. And the S is for the big one, stress.
Okay. I love it. So I'm going to put that up on screen. So if you didn't hear it, WAFFLES was actually the acronym. Did I get that right? Worries, anxiety, fears, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress.
Perfect.
Did I get
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we found is that when people are consumed with waffles,
Mhm.
that their brains are completely muddled or preoccupied. And so when I can show people how to dissolve their waffles, then they can go on to make better decisions. You can't make decisions when you're completely consumed with waffles,
Right.
stress, if I just say stress, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you think about it, you think about, well, if I had some really good news, like if I found out I had the winning lottery ticket, right? All of a sudden, decisions are easy and I can like breeze right through all of this stuff. But then if I get some bad news, if something happened to my pet or if I had a really bad day in traffic, when I get home, I'm so consumed with, all of that worry and concerns that I can't make good decisions. Now, as entrepreneurs, we are making decisions most of the time by ourselves or with limited support. So, in order to make good decisions, we have to be clear of waffles. We have to have the waffles dissolved.
Mhm. And
And
you make a good point too. As an entrepreneur, you can't control a lot of things, right? You can
right.
hopefully control where the future of your business is going, but you can't control sometimes what happens to you, but you can control your reaction to it. But sometimes we do get these overwhelming, you know, things that happen to us, whether it's stress or exhaustion or anything. It's like you can't think anymore. You can't make decisions and you just feel completely frozen, right?
And Brenda, it doesn't even have to be like something major. I have worked with clients before where they've come in with an issue with the waffles, and they. I had a client just this week. She came in and she said, "Oh, I don't have any problems at all." I said, "Okay, that's fine. Let's just tap on it and see what happens."
Yeah.
And as we tap, what comes up is something she'd completely forgotten about.
Hmm.
But even though she had forgotten about it in her prefrontal cortex, her amygdala in the back of her head had
Yeah.
remembered and was floating around there, and she wasn't even aware of it. So sometimes we have waffles that we're not even aware of, and it's preventing us from being as effective as we could be. And as
Mhm.
Filipreneurs, as entrepreneurs, as someone who's going out to change the world, and with limited resources, being able to control your waffles makes such a difference in your life. Huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think about when you were talking about the amygdala, I was thinking about that earlier, like these things that will get into our brain and just they freeze us up and it's this little part of our brain and it's like isn't don't they say it's like the fight or flight complex that's affected by it, but it freezes you up. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because there are some things that can just they can take over everything. And I see this happening sometimes with my dog Pepper when I walk her. She's fine, she's calm, she's sniffing. All of a sudden, squirrel. And that's all she is like I can be holding a filet mignon in front of her nose and she doesn't even she like squirrels right there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we as humans get that too, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. The amygdala is what is referenced as our lizard brain. It's the part of our brain that came from. dinosaurs or something. And the purpose of it is to protect us. So what
Mhm.
happens is when we were younger and our prefrontal cortex hasn't developed, we were in an uncomfortable or even potentially dangerous situation, and our amygdala signaled everything that was going on. It captured the sounds, the smells, the vision, it captured everything. So you may have walked into a room and felt incredibly uncomfortable and not known why. That's because your amygdala has picked up something and saying, it's not safe, it's not safe, it's not safe. And so, what tapping does is it kind of goes back to let me preface this. We don't know exactly what happens with tapping, but what we can guess is that our amygdala gets um, reassured that everything is okay and that we now have tools that we didn't have before. A great example is Brenda, if you and I were in a building and it caught fire, we would
Mhm.
know exactly what to do. We would run out, call 911, be safe. And if we were 15 years old, we would probably know what to do. If we were 10 years old, good chance we'd know what we would do. If we were 5 years old, we may not know what to do depending on the training we received.
Mhm.
But if we were 5 months old and we were laying in the middle of the floor on a blanket and the place got fire, we wouldn't have any idea what was going on. But our amygdala would recognize everything, including in the corner, there's a red trash can. Now,
Mm.
we were saved. And then later on in life, when we go into a room and in the corner there's a red trash can, our amygdala would light up and we wouldn't even remember why. And
Wow.
yeah. And so that's what happens when we get into a situation that we don't know why we have waffles. We don't know why we're worried or why we have anxiety or fear. And this happens a lot. I've referenced math a lot and being a mathematician.
Mhm.
So a lot of my math students, when I worked with them, I'll give you great examples. I had one math student who had was terrified of math. I was like, math is nothing to be afraid of. Why are you terrified? And it was right before I started my formal training and until I became a master trainer in emotional freedom technique. And I talked to them and I said, okay, so tell me what it is about math that frightens you. So
Mhm.
he told me a story about he was in college and he came from a calculus class. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly where this is headed, right? And he just gotten finished with a test. And I know what it's like. We end up second guessing, right?
Yes.
Our tests. And so I knew where he was going with it, or so I thought. And as he said, and I walked from the classroom back to my dorm. And as I got back to my dorm, my roommate had committed suicide in the
Oh my
dorm.
gosh. Wow.
So his amygdala had associated a math test
Wow.
with this traumatic event,
So
and it
sorry.
had
Yeah.
nothing to do with math
Mhm.
or anything. But but because because it was the timing of it, and his
Mhm.
amygdala had remembered it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's things that you wouldn't think of that
Yeah.
may be tripping you up. I had one client
Mhm.
who all she wanted to do was she wanted to focus more. She didn't feel like she was focusing enough. And so I worked with her once a month, 1 hour, once a month for 6 months. And by the end of it, not only was her focus increased, but she'd also been attending therapy. And all of these, I have to preface this, all of these
Yeah.
stories I'm telling, I've gotten permission from the clients to share.
Sure.
So I
Mhm.
wanted to say that.
And you're being
Um,
respectful. You're not
yeah,
mentioning names
yeah,
and they're anonymous, but they are
yeah,
real people in real
yeah,
situations. And we
yeah,
appreciate that you're sharing those,
yeah.
but anonymously out of respect. We
Yeah,
appreciate that.
and but I do want to let you know that the clients have given permission to share.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different things that you don't even think of that come up in a session that you go, oh yeah, that's right,
Right. Yeah.
that's right. Hmm.
Things that are buried. And I don't know if we want to do we want to talk a little bit about what tapping is? Do we have some time to give us a high level? I know you said it's not tap dancing that you're talking about. And I do have one personal experience. I worked with someone who we did a tapping exercise. So I'm familiar with it. But Katie, do you want to tell the audience what tapping
I
is
would
all
love
about?
to, and if you're up for it, we could actually do an example.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's do it.
So tapping is a brain-based somatic method. So it is based on the brain, and they've done clinical studies for the last 40 years, and they've shown that 1 hour of tapping can reduce cortisol levels by 42%. Now,
Wow.
cortisol is a hormone that is triggered like instantaneously when we are stressed, when we are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. Um, and to reduce it that quickly, that much is amazing. It's non invasive, non addictive, and is as effective as something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming. The difference is with EMDR, you have to be sitting in front of a trained therapist. With EFT, you can work with, I don't know, a mathematician, but
Uh,
more importantly, you learn how to do it yourself. So I have clients that we work on an issue, but in the process, they learn the technique and then they can do it themselves. Um, some of my clients come back to me and they say, I'm having this situation or I'm doing that. And I said, well, have you tapped on it? And they go, oh, I forgot how easy it was. And when I say I forgot, I have clients who come back to me and they refuse to admit that they had the problem in the first place. I have to show them the intake form. That's how much they forget the problem. Now they remember the memories, but they forget the problem. So yeah, if you want an example, I'd love to do
sure,
one.
let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, Brenda. The first one is, in the last 24 to 48 hours, have you had anything in your life that's caused you waffles, worries, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, stress? Did anyone pull out in front of you in traffic? Did you have any technical issues with computers or phones?
I am having
Anything?
a technical issue right now. I'm having a little bit of a waffle right now. My StreamYard panel in the right-hand side, it disappeared, and I'm trying to figure out what happened to it, and I
Oh,
can't get
okay.
it back.
That's great. That's
So
great.
so
Let's
let's talk about this.
let's do it. Let's work on that. So, when you think about the fact that your screen disappeared on the right hand side, what negative emotion came up?
Um, Anxiety,
Okay.
panic, because I'm already I'm trying to focus on what we're talking about right now, and I'm trying to think about if I can't get that panel to come back, what I'm gonna how am I gonna end this show at the I don't even know how I'm gonna end it. We're gonna fly by the seat of our pants here, Katie.
This could be the endless show, right? Okay. So, is it anxiety or panic the stronger?
Uh I probably anxiety. I'm not really panicking. I mean, I'm one I if you watch my show, I talk about I don't make mistakes. I have learning experiences.
I love
So
that.
there's going to be some type of a learning that comes out of this, and maybe someone will go into LinkedIn chat and tell me if they've had this happen on StreamYard, what they did to resolve it. If not, at the end, I'll just close the window instead of. So
There
it's
you
more
go.
of like it's more anxiety than panic, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Now, Brenda, from the top of your head all the way down to your toes, where do you feel the anxiety in your body?
I feel it like in my chest.
In your chest. And from 0 to 10, where 0 is like, it's no big deal, and 10 is the most anxious you've felt in your entire life, what number would you give it?
It's probably like a 4-ish.
4. Okay. And is this a true statement right here, right now? I feel safe.
Mhm.
Is that true?
Yeah, I feel safe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to repeat a number of sentences. The last question is, if I ask you to repeat something, you go, no, that's not true, or I would have used different words. Will you do me a favor and put them in your own words for me?
Sure.
Okay. So we start off with our facing our one palm facing our face,
Okay.
and with 4 fingers of the other hand, we're going to tap on the side of the hand,
Okay.
and we're going to repeat after me and say, even though
Even though
I can't find the other part.
what's that?
What is it you can't find? You can't find the other part of
Oh,
the
even
screen?
though I can't see my StreamYard navigation.
Even though I can't see my StreamYard navigation,
Yep.
I feel this anxiety in my chest.
I feel this anxiety in my chest.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
And we'll repeat versions of that 2 more times. Even though
Even though
I have a little bit of anxiety in my chest right now,
I have a little bit of anxiety in my chest right now.
because I can't find my StreamYard navigation screen.
Because I can't find my StreamYard navigation screen.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Even though
Even though
I don't know what happened to my StreamYard navigation screen,
I don't know what happened to my StreamYard navigation screen.
and it's making me feel anxious in my chest.
It's making me feel anxious in my chest.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
And then on the top of the head, and you can use your right hand or your left hand or both, whichever feels most comfortable, and
Okay.
say, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
And then above your nose, on the edge of your eyebrows, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
And then on your temple, on the side of your eye, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
And then the next spot is where I keep all my bags for a quick getaway, and that's under the eyes, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
Under the nose, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
Under the lips, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
Cross your wrist and tap on your collarbone and say, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
And then tap on the side of your ribs and say, anxiety in my chest.
Anxiety in my chest.
And put your hands on your shoulders.
Mhm.
And we're going to rub down to our elbows as we blow out like a cartoon character. It goes like this. So, Brenda, from 0 to 10, the anxiety in your chest, how intense is it now?
It's feeling probably more like a 2 now.
Oh,
It's
good. If
down.
it's a 2, put both
It
feet on the floor
Mhm.
and keep your body and your head still. Don't move it. Take your
Mhm.
eyes and take your eyes down to the floor. And I want you to think about the anxiety in your chest because you can't find the StreamYard navigation. And move your eyes very slowly up to about the level of your knees and then up to the level of your waist and your chest, your neck. Your eyes go up all the way up to the ceiling, thinking about the anxiety in your chest all the way up, and then bring them slowly all the way back down, all the way back down, all the way back down, down to the floor. And then take a breath out. The anxiety in your chest from 0 to 10 is where now?
Probably still a 1 right now.
Okay, that's good.
So
It
waiting
was
for that
good.
bear to come back or somebody to say what I need to do.
Oh, so now you'll be able to find the StreamYard anxiety navigation. What happens is this is a great example of what happens when you have the waffles in your brain. You can't think straight because the anxiety takes over, and you're like, oh, I got to find it. I've got to find it. I got to find it, and that takes over your brain uh, mechanism, so you can't think. And that's
Mhm.
why it's so important for entrepreneurs to know how to do this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great exercise, and I do remember doing the tapping before, and I remember some of the same methodologies in terms of the points that you're tapping on. The blowing and the breaths, those were a little bit different than what I had done before, but I can see how those would definitely play into alleviating some of that stress and almost redirecting some of the energy, and it's almost like redirecting some of your brain wave fields too, right? Like moving shifting the focus in different areas, would you say?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's called um, energy work,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of other things that are energy work. Reiki is energy work. We mentioned qigong earlier before the show is energy work, and if you think about Einstein, he said everything is energy, right? And so, and there's it. You can't create or delete energy; it just moves. And so, moving the energy in your body makes such a difference.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's really, really good stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think what we're going to do now is we're going to change gears and we're going to open this up for audience Q&A, and I'm going to try to pull up the Q&A navigation. If I can't get that, though, I will ask our audience if you do have any questions. Let's see. Here we go. I got my question panel to navigate here. If you do have any questions for Katie, feel free to drop them into the chat right now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see them on the screen to pull them up because I'm missing the very side panel, but I will be able to read them on LinkedIn. So I have LinkedIn loaded up in another window. Katie, this is what we do as entrepreneurs. We always have a backup plan. We have a backup for our backup plan too. My other thing
Absolutely.
I could try, Katie, is remember in the beginning of the show, I said if this is hosted on StreamYard, so if for any reason either one of us loses access, the stream will keep going. One thing I'm thinking about doing, Katie, is removing myself from StreamYard, closing the window, and restarting it. Now, you know that the stream will keep going, and I feel very confident in my ability to keep you on screen for about 30 seconds. But I want to see if I can get one question loaded up first. So maybe you can answer that question while
Sure.
I'm leaving so it doesn't feel like we have this awkward silence, if that would be
No,
okay with you.
I can talk.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not seeing any questions coming in yet. There is about a 30-second delay from the time I ask our audience if they do have any questions to the time that they hear it. And then it takes them another 30 seconds to a minute to type in questions. Here's one thing I want to think about. I would imagine, you said math, it causes people a lot of anxiety. I imagine that's a big trigger for some people. Getting into a test taking type of a situation, or sometimes even just sitting down and doing homework. I imagine, some people don't have anxiety with math, but it's in other subjects and in other areas as well. But is tapping a technique that you've used with people who are struggling with math and math anxiety?
Oh, Brenda, of course. In fact, I have, when I do tutoring, one of the first things I ask students is, when you think of the word math, what do you come up with? Many students, I had one student in particular who said when he thought of math, he envisioned himself in a boat in the ocean. And I thought, oh, this is restful and peaceful and wonderful. But then he continued to say, I find myself in a boat in the ocean, and there's a gaping hole in the middle, in the bottom of the boat, and the water's coming out everywhere, and I'm drowning. And I thought, oh, he probably doesn't have a great feel about math. But yeah, I do work with a lot of math students, especially when I do tutoring, and I help them with the math and the test anxiety. And I see a question. Is it okay if I read it and
Yeah,
answer it,
please
Brenda?
do.
Okay. So Pam is asking if tapping is also good for longer term stress and worry, like an entrepreneur, where clients come from, or how will I pay my bills? And the answer is absolutely. I've worked with many entrepreneurs. I've worked with many speakers who, for instance, are fearful of making cold calls. And it's been exciting to watch them as they grow from it. In fact, usually, Brenda, when I'm doing, almost all my clients are on Zoom. Some of them do come into my office, but mostly they're on Zoom. And I can watch them physically change. Many clients come in and they have, their shoulders are up to their
Crunched.
ears.
Yep.
Yeah, they're
Hmm.
crunched. And they're like, I'm fine, everything's fine. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so we, and as we start working, I'm just watching their shoulders melt down and their neck appear, which I'm like, oh, you have a neck. I don't say that out loud, but I think that. But yes, tapping can definitely work with long-term stress and worry, and
Oh,
it's
Katie
very
just
helpful.
froze.
Yeah,
There.
and it
Okay.
allows us to be more confident, to be
Mhm.
more centered, and to actually get the work done that we want to get done. So yes,
So,
one.
is this something? I mean, I felt it already in one session, but is this something that we need to do regularly, daily? Whenever we feel anxiety, like if we were to try the tapping method, Katie, how often do we need to do it? And is this something that's guided, working with a person, or can you do it by yourself?
Okay, so there was 5 questions in there, so I'll answer them.
Lots of math are coming out.
That was great. That was great. So the first answer is, clinical studies have shown
Mhm.
that when you work on an aspect of a issue, that aspect will not return. Short example, I had a retired Air Force officer who now is working on a farm. Again, he's given me permission to share this story.
Okay.
And I said, okay, so what is it about the farm that concerns you? He said, I hate spiders. I said, oh, okay. What is it about the spiders you hate? He's like, I hate walking through the cobwebs. It's
The
just,
webs. Yeah.
I can't stand it. So we tapped on it and it was gone. I saw him a couple of weeks later and I said, so how are you doing with spiders? And he said, oh, I hate them. I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. I thought we worked on that. He said, oh, I don't mind the cobwebs anymore. He said, I just hate the way they crawl. I said, well,
Oh,
we can work
yeah.
on that. He said, no, 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 no. I'm okay. I can deal with that. So Clinical studies have shown that when you work on an issue, that issue does not return. I had one client who had a deep fear of flying. What was it about the flying that you feared? Well, she for her, she didn't like the claustrophobia, the being tightly in, and
Yeah.
she had to travel frequently. We worked on that, and she was okay. There were other parts of flying she didn't like, but that was the biggest one. So, the question of does it does it return on that individual issue? No, it does not return, but you may find other things. The
Mhm.
second part is, do you need to do it frequently?
Yeah.
I do tapping every day because, as it turns out, I get waffles every day.
Right. Yeah.
I get, you may find me driving in town and I'm tapping on, I can't believe this jerk just pulled out in front of me, right? And
Yeah.
so I have
Hmm.
to regulate. It's a way to regulate myself. Do you need a certified practitioner? Because you can do tapping on yourself, it's very, very effective. However, there's some issues where you don't think to ask yourself the questions that a certified practitioner would ask you, right? Um, I had a client the other day and we were working on something and her number level was not going down. It was just, it was stagnant. Well, because I've had level one, level two, level three, I'm a mentor, I'm a supervisor, and now a master trainer, I
Hmm.
have a whole toolbox of tapping techniques that I can pull from, to help people get over that next bunch, right?
Hmm.
So I've had people come in and I'll have to ask them questions because I need to know more. And in the process of asking questions, they go, oh, now it makes sense. And so that's the advantage of working with a certified practitioner. Now, another
Yeah.
question that gets asked a lot, and I see that Joey kind of uh, referenced it, is that how about positivity?
Yeah.
I've been a positive promoter all my life. And my poor husband has had to listen to it for decades and decades. So when I came to him and I said, oh, come here, honey, sit down on the couch next to me. We're going to try something new. And he rolled his eyes and sat down. And I said, okay, tell me something negative that's happened in your life today. Well, he gave me a side eye and said, is this a trap?
Uh,
You've told me to be positive all my life, and now you want something negative? I said, yeah, that positive thing wasn't working. So we're going to go negative now.
oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of people don't realize that regardless of how positive we are, there are negative things that are hidden in our bodies,
Mhm.
those negative emotions that are hidden in our bodies. And I had a client the other day who came in and she said, I just came from a massage, but my neck is still stiff. So we
Really?
worked on her neck, and by the time she left, she was like, "Oh, what
It felt
happened?"
like lower, right? Not quite as,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, as positive as we might want to be, we have to bring up the negative so that we have room for the positive to come in. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, a lot. I've had one client walk out on me when I said, "Okay, tell me your negative emotion," and he said, "I'm positive all the time, and I just won't even entertain this." I said, "Okay, that's fine.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine."
I feel like, I mean, it's just a part of life. I mean, things frustrate us, and my philosophy is always like sometimes you gotta like let yourself vent.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're gonna implode from the inside, because you're having these.
exactly.
You don't want somebody to solve the problems. You just want to vent about the guy who cut you off in traffic and
Yeah,
how that made you feel, and
yeah, yeah, exactly.
right?
You're so
Mhm.
right. You're
Yeah.
so right. Yeah, yeah. But
So
I
I
do believe in positivity.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love the positive. I think that's one of the things that drew me to you. Even we're on these Friday speaker friend calls on Friday, and there's probably, sometimes 60 to 80 women that are
Yeah,
in the room. Few men will come in from time to time as well, primarily women, but we don't all get the chance to speak, but we do have our videos on, and sometimes you'll ask questions, and sometimes you will offer advice, and sometimes you're just in there listening and nodding along, and I really felt that positive energy from you, so that comes
thank you.
through consistently wherever I've seen you, and I think that's part of the reason I'm drawn to bring you on here today. So what I want to do now, Katie, is I want to pull up your LinkedIn profile and ask if you are open to connecting with folks that are watching you here today.
Possibly. So let me say possibly because I
think
do
that's a
have.
fair. I mean, everybody usually says absolutely, but I love that you said possibly. So tell us more.
So the reason why I say possibly is I get way too many people say, "Oh, I love your content and it's fabulous, and I got the best things to sell to you." I don't need anybody to sell to me. If there's something I want to buy, I'll look for it. But if you just want to connect and have a friendly relationship, I'm all for that. That would be great.
There you go. And I think on LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken, let me look at your profile a little closer. Do you have creator mode turned on, Katie, or do you know? It's I can't see because I'm not seeing the hashtags at the top of your profile, and I'm already connected with you, so it already says message. Do you know if you have creator mode set up or not on your profile?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay. And don't feel bad that you don't. I sometimes I can tell by looking at profiles. I'm not seeing any of the visual cues on there, but I'll just let our audience know. If you do go to Katie's profile and you're not connected with her, I'm already connected. That's why I see the message button. If you're not connected with her and you see connect, that means she doesn't have creator mode set up and you can click on connect and invite her to
Oh,
connect. I
yeah,
always say add a note, but if Katie instead of connect they see follow, typically that means because you have creator mode turned on. So if they do want to connect with you, they'd have to click on the more button and then there's an invite option underneath that.
yeah, I believe you can connect directly with me
Okay, wonderful.
as long
And
as you're not going to tell me anything.
yeah, so and I think that's fair. I'm hearing this term a lot more lately, pitch slap, when people either pitch you in the invitation or immediately after you accept, they slap you with the sales pitch. So that's where the term pitch slap is coming from. And I completely and wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Nobody wants to be pitched in their invitation or to only connect with people to be sold to. I completely agree with you there. I'm going to also pull up your website here too. And it was funny in the pre-show I said, "Did I spell that right? N knowledgeco.com," and you corrected me and you said, "What how do you pronounce that?"
Knowledge company.
Brilliant. Like, now that she says it, you can't unsee it. Knowledge Company, and it's like a phonetic spelling using your last name. I love that. It's so clever.
Yeah, my mission statement that I evolved over 30 years ago was that education at every turn. Sometimes I'm the teacher and sometimes I'm the student. And so it ties directly into knowledge.
I love it. It's brilliant. And if people are interested in learning more about working with you, Katie, can you remind us what are the services and offerings that you have?
I'm a national speaker, a two-time TEDx speaker, and a presenter. I'm also an MC, and I do one-on-ones, both with tapping, and I can now train levels 1, levels 2, and level 3 in tapping, and I hold classes both live and via Zoom.
Wonderful. And in the pre-show, you were talking about a mastermind that you're working on. Or is this something that's ongoing right now? Or tell us more about that.
So the mastermind will be ongoing starting in January of 2024. And it's called the Awareness Mastermind. And you can find that on guidedtalk.com. It is a collaboration with two friends. I'm in Florida, they're in North Carolina, and it's to bring awareness to some of the things that are happening around us all the time that we don't always see. So you can find out more information on that website.
Okay, I'm going to put this into the chat too. Check out her. And this mastermind is starting in January, did you say? Or is
January of 2024, and it will be rolling from there. Mm-hmm.
okay, wonderful. And I know the web address. I was having some difficulty with it in the pre-show. My fault, not yours, Katie, but it's not with the www. Just enter guidedtalk.com/mastermind. No S on the end of talk. And that was another mistake I had made on there. So I'm just letting our audience know. But if you are on LinkedIn, you'll be able to click into it right from the comment. So I put
Thank
the
you, Brenda.
direct link right in there for you. So, Katie, this has been just such a delightful conversation. And for those that joined us late and are just catching the tail end of it, today we were talking about the importance of managing waffles to make better decisions. No, we did not talk about breakfast item waffles, but I'm sure, Katie, now that this is a topic and a talk that you do, when you go places, do people give you like Etsy cloth waffles and
Oh,
waffle earrings, and
yeah.
is that become like pie is my thing? Has waffles, have they become your thing?
Oh, definitely. I have a waffles hat. I have all kinds of waffles.
Yeah, I love it. And I was on a client website yesterday, and it's Fishman Stewart. They're an intellectual property and trademarking company, and they have this character. His name is Finny, and he's a fish. So when you navigate on the website, instead of having just the mouse arrow, it's a fish. Like when
Oh,
you
how
move your and
cute.
I said, "Oh, I wanna get, like, a pie icon on Meller Marketing," and you could have, like, a waffle icon
Oh, I love
on
that.
your
Thank you
website
for that.
analogy,
Thank
right?
you. Thank you. Thank you. I love that.
Especially if there's anybody who's an IT person watching us, let us know if it's an easy thing to do to code in sites, because that'd be a lot of fun. At any rate, Katie, I really enjoyed our discussion. Any final comments for us on the importance of managing waffles as we wrap up here today?
Yeah, I'd like for the audience to remember that this too shall pass, but it will pass easier if you once you learn how to dissolve your waffles. So thank you, Brenda, so much for an amazing, amazing podcast.
Oh, this has been such a fun conversation, Katie. And thank you for watching, for our audience, for joining us in here as well. And Katie, and maybe I'm not going to be on the Speaker Friend Friday this week, but I'm sure I'll see you in future weeks, and we'll continue to stay in touch.
Thanks, Brenda.
All right, wonderful. And for all of you watching, I want to remind you that Katie and I are now self-employed. We do not get performance reviews. So our reviews come in the form of comments by you. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, do let us know. Give us a comment before you leave here today. And by the way, if you have not yet posted on LinkedIn this week, this month, heck, maybe even this year, here's the thing that you can do. As soon as the video is done playing, you'll see a share icon that will appear at the bottom. Click on share and share it as a LinkedIn post. When you do so, be sure to tag Katie and myself in the post. Remember to use the little @ sign, and our names will pop up in the drop down. That's how you tag us. Maybe tell people something that you learned by watching the video, maybe something about the acronym or something about tapping. But do consider sharing that along, and it helps to count as a LinkedIn post. With that said, everyone, have a wonderful day. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we will see you around LinkedIn. And I'll see you too, Katie. Take care.